I love fantasy books that have a good dash of romance. So for today's video, I'm gonna give you my 5 personal favorite fantasy romance book recommendations. So hi and welcome back to my channel, my fellow fantasy book lovers, or if you're new here, hi and welcome. My name is Kathy and I'm a fantasy book lover from Belgium who shares their love for reading online. Before I get into the list, I want to quickly mention that I will not be including ACOTAR on this particular video because I personally did not enjoy ACOTAR as much. That is, of course, my opinion. I love vampires and everything surrounding vampires, so my first entry on this list is the entire Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. This currently is a series with 5 books and 6 Scorched Roses, the novella that comes in between Serpent in the Wings of Night and Ashes and the Star-Cursed King is one of my favorites. Now, of course, I love all 5 books. Well, technically 4 of the 5 I love because I haven't read Songbird and Heart of Stone just yet at the moment of airing this video, but the other books that I love. In this realm, we have different types of vampires, and if you want to read the complete series, you can either start or end the series as it currently exists with Slaying the Vampire Conqueror. In Slaying the Vampire Conqueror, we follow our female main character who is a type of sorceress assassin. She is blind and she belongs to this type of coven situation, and she is sent on an assassination quest as there is a wave coming into the country that she senses because she cannot see of vampires invading, and she feels the energy of this vampire conqueror. She wants to go assassinate him, but she is pulled back by her coven, and in the end the coven does decide to send her to infiltrate his ranks, gain his trust, and then kill him. So this is a fantasy romance with a lot more plot than just romance, but there is a definite romance line in it. The other books, the order of reading is first Serpent and the Wings of Night, then, if you have it, 6 Scorched Roses, but you can also read this before or after the series, and then you can read Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. Serpent and the Wings of Night and Ashes and the Star-Cursed King follow the 2 same main characters. I'm not going to talk too much in depth about these books because if I talk about book 2, I'm going to spoil it for book 1. In book 1, we follow Oraya, who has been raised as the daughter of this vampire king, but she's actually been found in the ravages of a city being burned and being hunted by vampires. So she's been taken in as his daughter, but she may or may not be his daughter. I'm not going to talk too much in depth about that. But in the beginning of the book, she's about to enter these trials, and if she succeeds these trials, so the winner of it will actually gain the favor of Nyaxia, who is the goddess of these vampires. She enters these trials. It has a little bit of a Hunger Games vibe, and of course there's other vampires in there, and she starts forming alliances, which is not the easiest thing to do as a human in a vampire society, because in this world there is 3 sorts of vampires, and then of course there's humans, but the humans are used more as cattle than anything else. At the end of book 1, we actually have the end of these trials and who wins and what happens, and in book 2 we continue on that situation. And then of course there will be a new duet, which the first book just released, which is Songbird and Heart of Stone, and in these books we will follow Mish, who is one of the friends of the characters of Serpent and the Wings of Night and Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, and we will follow a complete separate story with her as the main character. This is also going to be 2 books, so a duology, which takes place in the same realm. So to my belief, this takes place after Serpent and the Wings of Night, but I cannot tell you for sure because I haven't read this yet. If you're not sure if you want to dip your toes into this entire series, then I could highly recommend just picking up 6 Scorched Roses. In 6 Scorched Roses, we have Lilith. She's a human girl living in a village that has been cursed, which causes crops to die, people to die, etc. And Lilith is trying to save her sister who has fallen ill and find a cure. For this cure, she wants to use vampire blood to try and see if it helps, and in exchange for 6 vials of blood, she offers the vampire 6 Scorched roses. And that is what this story is about, so Lovelott and this vampire. I love this book. It's also very short, so if you're just dipping your toes into this genre and into this series by this author, this is a very good starting point. Do know that these characters will not be in Serpent and the Wings of Night, but they will be in Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. If vampires are not so much your thing as they are mine, then I have another series that I really enjoy. It is That Time I Got Drunk N, and these are very short novellas that you can read honestly in one sitting if you're like me. These books are around 250 pages, so even if you're a slow reader, you can finish this rather fast, and trust me, once you get into the story, you will want to read these rather fast. In both books, we follow different main characters. So in the first book, That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon, we follow Cinnamon, who is a girl living in this village. She gets drunk one night, stumbles home, and encounters a demon that she is going to save in the woods. They of course get involved together, and this is very, very spice and smut heavy. So if you want that from your book where the focus is more on the romance than on anything else, then these books are good for you. In the second book, we follow the best friend of Cinnamon, who accidentally yeets a love potion at a werewolf while drinking in a bar. And of course, he falls in love with her, but is it real, is it not? Again, a lot of smut. The main stories are okay in these books, but they're like not the best books ever. I, however, find them super enjoyable, and the smut is top tier. If you want a more or less equal amount of storyline and smut, then there is the Glimmer Falls series by Sarah Hawley. And if you're wondering why I'm not holding up book one, it's because I borrowed it to a friend who's equally obsessed with the series as I am now. In the first book, which I don't have here, is A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. The witch of the story accidentally summons a demon and then enters into a pact with him, because that's apparently what happens when you summon a demon, and she tries to find a solution and she pretends to fake date him. So that's what happens in book one. They of course end up involved. I mean, it's very, very obvious. Book two is A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch. We follow a different demon and a different witch than in book one. She's actually the best friend of the witch of book number one. And yeah, he falls mad in love with this witch and tries to woo her. And then book three is the most recent release. This is A Werewolf's Guide to Seducing a Vampire. Said werewolf is the boss of the plant shop that the witch from book number one works at. And in a drunk state, he actually orders a gem that will contain a vampire succubus, forgets about it until it arrives at his door, and then tries to free her from being bound to said crystal, and of course more happens. These books have about the same amount of plotline, storyline, and smut, and they're very enjoyable. These, in my opinion, are the best entryway into fantasy romance if you want to get more into smutty romances. And then the fifth spot on my list is actually a tie between two books. It is between Fang Fiction and Bride by Ali Hazelwood, which I do not own a physical copy of. I read it on my e-reader. In Fang Fiction, we follow a girl who's obsessed with a book series about vampires, and she's actually active on an online forum, and they are like trying to make claims that the books could actually be based on real facts and real people, and one day she actually encounters one of them. So she gets pulled into the actual story, which is like the dream of every reader, I think, or mine at least. I think it would be amazing to have like similar life like the one she lives. So she encounters vampires. It is not super smut heavy in the first part of the book. However, in the second part of the book, as things get going, there is a little bit more. Do note that this book contains a little bit more gory details about some things that vampires do than all of the other books we have already discussed. And of course, in Bride by Ali Hazelwood, we follow our female main character who is a vampire. She has been used as collateral by the vampires to form a human alliance when she was younger, which means that the human kid goes live with the vampires and the vampire kid goes live with the humans in exchange for X amount of years. Now this period has been over, so she's just working an IT job and not really going back to where she was like raised a little bit. She prefers to stay in the human world. However, she's called back because she needs to be collateral once again, and this time for a werewolf-vampire alliance where she needs to marry the pack leader of the local werewolf clan. So that is the basic setup of this story in typical Ali Hazelwood Hazelwood, you have a little bit of build-up, and then of course the romance starts happening. This happens pretty soon in the book actually. The romance and the smut is very good in this book. However, before you start reading it, quickly look up the knotting kink, as this is very present in the book, especially near the end of the book. And if you're not into those particular things, then I would maybe not recommend reading it. So there you have it, my top 5 or actually 6 romantasy books of 2024. Of course, I would love to know which one you've read or what your favorite romantasy read has been this year. Feel free to let me know in the comments. And if you're looking for more book recommendations, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and of course check out more of my videos. Thank you so much for watching and happy reading. Bye!